Lovely. All right. Now, just want to make sure. Can everyone see this presentation? Yay, it worked. Okay, wonderful. All right. Welcome to the Events 101 workshop. I guess we'll just crack straight into it. So first we'll talk to you about the 5 W's, which is the basics of if you're wanting to do an event, you have to think of who, what, when, where, and why. So Rowan, just jump in whenever. But basically who will probably be quite obvious. It will generally be for your club members, but who are your target audience and who will actually benefit from this event? So as much as running an event for the sake of running the event might seem like a good idea, it's always good to take a step back and ask yourself, why am I actually doing this? So this will also determine your who, will determine how you advertise your event. Will you be doing it via social media? Will you be doing it on posters, via your Facebook page? And how will this event fulfill your attendees' needs? You will also need to determine who on your executive will be tracking the expenses for this event, generally the treasurer, but always good to discuss that beforehand. Next we have what. So what is the main takeaway for this event? What does the event schedule look like? What needs to be decided on weeks beforehand? And who do you need to make this event happen? Do you need funding? Do you need sponsorship? Who out of your executive needs to be there to make sure that everything runs smoothly? Basically, what elements need to be decided on before the event so that the event can take place? Next is when, which is, I guess, a bit of an obvious one, but it's nice to look at that on like a larger scale of when will this event take place? When is your venue available? Is there a specific time of year that is better for your attendees? And how often will this event take place? Do you think you'll do it annually? Do you think it might become a bi-weekly catch-up meeting? Just something to think about. Where is again a bit of an obvious one, but where is your event going to take place, what venue, and why this one? It's actually pretty good to have a little shop around. There are lots of different venues in Newcastle and even on campus, and there are more venues coming. And so it's definitely a great idea to get different quotes just to see if you can save more money and create those connections with the different venues as well. And in saying that, it's a good idea to potentially look at building a repertoire with a particular venue. So say if every year you hold an annual ball, if you continue to go to the same place, maybe you could look at asking them for sponsorship, or at least that they will help you advertise. You know, building those connections and relationships is actually a really great idea. And I guess the big one is actually why. Everything you do for this event will have a purpose. So why did you choose this over that? What are the overall goals of the event? How will you record what went well and what didn't for future references and executives? This might seem a little bit dry to do, but it is honestly so helpful after every event to go through what went well and what didn't, even if you just sit down with your executive for 10 minutes and just jot it down, just so when the next event comes up, you can refer back to that, or for the future executives so that they can see what the attendees responded well to, what didn't work, what did work, etc. And yeah, I guess the main thing is don't throw an event just for the sake of throwing an event. Go through these 5 W's, take your time, and really think about what you want this event to look, feel like, and why you're actually doing it. So there's that. Next up, we have basically a bunch of resources. Student Central and UNSA have worked together really hard to create all these resources for you. So I'd recommend taking the time to go through our resources and templates. You can see the links in the slideshow below. On the UNSA website, under clubs guidelines, chapter 8, that's all, it will tell you all about the events, the event approval process and everything like that. It'll also give you a bunch of templates that you can use. So we've got like a checklist, we've got risk assessment templates, which we'll talk about soon. We've just got a bunch of different things there that will definitely help you run the event more smoothly. Student Central and UNSA have got a bunch of event experience, and so by combining that, we take that brain work out for you, so you can just download the templates to make sure that your event runs smoothly and successfully from like prep till the end. We are working on building relationships with local restaurants and vendors and venues to offer you the best prices and services, which is a resource that we want to build on. So if there's anyone that you love working with or that you'd want to see us working with, please also let us know. Yes, but yeah, these templates will make sure that nothing gets missed. So you don't need to worry, you know, when you wake up in the morning of your big event and think, oh God, did I remember to do this? Or, they will make sure that you don't forget the things. Alrighty, so there's that. And now we'll talk a little bit about the approval process and the risk assessments, give you some advice around that. A quick rundown on approval, or for UNSA's approval process, would just be you're more likely to get approved if you source a couple of different quotes. So for example, if you go to a couple of different vendors to cater for your event. This is because it will help you save money and it prepares you for the working world, where if you want to pitch something, you generally do actually have to get a few different quotes. So it allows you to learn, you know, those life skills as well. Having a sensible amount being spent per person, so say like $7 to $10 for nibbles and $12 to $15 for a sit-down meal per head, for example. But yes, that is our approval process. I won't go into it too much at the moment, because we'll be able to, if you ever have any questions, please just reach out. Again, it's on our website. But one thing that I will talk about, and Ron will have something to say as well, for the risk assessments, why we do it and what we look for. A lot of the time, risk assessments might seem like a bit of a pain in the bum, but they are actually really important, because if something goes wrong, being approved and having your risk assessment approved means that you're insured. Without having your event approved, you're actually not insured, which could mean that you could potentially be personally liable, which we definitely don't want you to be, which is why we help you with all your events and your risk assessments. So the best way to go about a risk assessment is thinking about the entire process. So when people arrive, what does that look like? Is there parking available? Are there tripping hazards? When they walk into the venue, what does that look and feel like while they are at the venue, while the event is happening? Are there any hazards? Could there be any injuries, you know, setting up the venue or pack down? And when people leave, will it be dark? Will there need to be transport organised? Could there be people that are slightly intoxicated? What are you going to do to make sure that they get home safely? This is the kind of stuff that we want you to think about when doing a risk assessment. Under our resources, we do have a bunch of examples for risk assessments that you could look at using, but we don't want you to just copy and paste those. We do want you to actually think about it, because every event has a risk, especially during COVID times. So it is definitely something that you should consider and think about before submitting your event approval.
It's quite, it's been a bit of a change for a lot of people since COVID has become a thing as well. Risk plans and event plans have become something that does need to be, as much as we needed to be across things in the past, they now have had a separate process to be approved by health response team. So I know many of you have found that you're doing a lot more event plans and a lot more risk assessments. around each individual event. But that is development for you guys, but it's also, as Jess spoke to before, it means you're covered, it means you're insured, and we go through the exact same process from all of our events. We have to get every single one of our events approved, including the risk plans by health response team, to ensure that we're able to proceed with things. And that's anything from our weekly barbecues when we're able to do those, all the way up to things like autonomy party and that sort of stuff that that we have to get approved by the health response team at the moment to be able to proceed with them. Scale is a big thing. Scale is one of those things that people sometimes forget. The bigger the event, the more extensive the risk plan should be. Again, for example, a barbecue that we run in the York Community Courtyard is likely to have a page at most of risk planning, whereas something like autonomy is about a 20-page document just on risk. But it makes sense that scale should, the bigger the event, the higher the risk that is there. So trying to take into consideration all those things is a huge part of it. As Jess said, we both have templates from a Student Central perspective and an UNSA perspective around, we have templates around events, around risk plans, all that sort of stuff. They're pretty similar. It's just really the way they look. They all encompass the same things. They all encompass probably the thing that I think is most important, and from doing events for the last 15 years, I think is probably one of the most important things, is the objectives. If you don't have objectives for an event, then you don't know why you're running it. Therefore, you can't plan correctly. If you don't know why you're running, as it links into those 5 W's, if you don't know your objectives, you don't know why, you don't know how you're going to do it. You may be able to fumble through, but it's never going to be the event that you really want. What we have an event plan template for everything we do as Student Central as well. That'll have everything from overview, objectives, the program, staffing and resources, which Jess spoke to before, planning out who within the club is actually going to be responsible for each different element. From experience, there's a lot of clubs that are really, really good at that. There's clubs that have dedicated teams to doing things, but not everyone's in that situation that they're able to have a whole team. So quite often it falls onto the same 4 executives running those events, but planning out who is doing what is going to alleviate that. Obviously budget, super simple thing, communication, site plans, and then probably the second most important thing that Jess has already mentioned is the evaluation process. Every single event that we do on campus is treated the same way. We do an evaluation of every single event, and the amount of times that we've been sitting in the office going, oh, we've got to start planning this event, and someone runs off and goes, oh, let's sit down and we'll grab the post-event report from that event. That's our starting process. Then we know what worked, what didn't work before you even start planning. That can be a tricky one, but I think if you're looking to really improve your succession planning as clubs, and helping out that next generation of club executives, if you're doing an event plan and a post-event report for every event you do, and the incumbent treasurer, secretary, vice president, and president get those copies, and they're going to see those. They're already ahead of the game because they can go, okay, well, what worked? What didn't work? Okay, now I understand that, because it's surprisingly quick how you forget. People think something went a certain way or think they got these numbers for an event, or think something cost a certain amount, but it's so easy to miss things. So from our perspective, that is, again, one of the really, really important parts of that. And it all ties in. This is all part of risk as well. You alleviate risk by doing event reports, post-event reports, because you're already ahead of the game. You already know how last time went and you're learning from your mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the important things to think of as well, like as we said before with the risk assessment, thinking about, you know, how it will start, how it will finish. When you're thinking of an event, really walk through, you know, if someone arrives, what's it going to look like? Do they need to get their name ticked off? Are you going to have name tags? Do they go in? What do they do once they enter? So really sit down and walk through the entire event up until the end, because that'll help you, you know, think of any risks or make sure that nothing is forgotten about. Yeah, I think that's what helps me, at least, just really walking myself through the event. But I guess next we basically would like to help you. So if you have any events related questions, no questions are silly, honestly, just fire away. Now is the time to ask. And also if you have any events that you're thinking of hosting, but you don't really know what it could look like, or you want some ideas, we're here to listen. I will just stop recording just to make sure that as your questions will be for your club specifically. Let me just stop recording.
So this is kind of when we put this together. We've done this a few times with the res around their programming and their planning as well. But I think the most important thing is us looking at what events you guys have, us looking at what events you guys have coming up, and seeing where we can improve or where we can help or where we can grow a lot of your events.